Maya Chen stared at her phone screen for the 10th time that evening, reading the same text message over and over. Her younger sister had just announced her engagement to a man she'd only been dating for 8 months. The words felt like tiny knives cutting into her heart. "Another wedding invitation I'll attend alone," she whispered to her empty apartment. At 34, Maya worked as the head librarian in Riverside Falls, a quiet mountain town where gossip traveled faster than wildfire. She knew what people said about her behind her back: the spinster librarian, the woman who lived alone with her books and her cats, the one who never managed to keep a man interested. Maya walked to her bathroom mirror and looked at herself honestly. She wasn't ugly, but she wasn't the kind of woman men noticed either. Average height, brown hair always pulled back in a practical ponytail, glasses that had gone out of style years ago, and clothes that prioritized comfort over fashion. Her last relationship had ended 3 years ago when Tom told her she was too boring for him. Before that, there was Kevin, who said she wasn't adventurous enough. And before Kevin, there was a string of first dates that never led to second ones. The apartment felt suffocating suddenly. Maya grabbed her coat and decided to take a walk, even though it was almost 10 at night. The cool mountain air usually helped clear her head, but tonight it just made everything feel more lonely. She found herself walking past the old church where her sister would probably get married. Through the windows, she could see the janitor cleaning up after some evening event. Happy couples had probably been there earlier, planning their perfect day. Maya felt a familiar ache in her chest. "What's wrong with me?" she asked the empty street. "Why doesn't anyone ever want me?" She thought back to high school when she'd watched all her friends get asked to prom while she stayed home. College wasn't much better. While her roommates went on dates and had relationships, Maya buried herself in books and studies. She told herself it was because she was focused on her future, but deep down she knew the truth. Nobody was asking. The pattern continued after college. She'd moved to Riverside Falls 5 years ago, hoping a fresh start in a smaller town might change things. But small towns had their own challenges. Everyone knew everyone, and Maya quickly became known as the quiet librarian who kept to herself. She'd tried everything she could think of: online dating apps where her messages went unanswered, joining the local hiking club where she was always the odd one out, even volunteering at the animal shelter, where people told her she was good with the dogs but never seemed interested in getting to know her better. Maya walked past Murphy's Diner, where she could see couples sharing late-night coffee through the bright windows. She quickened her pace, not wanting to be seen looking in from the outside again. The worst part wasn't being alone, she realized. The worst part was feeling invisible. At work, people were polite and professional, but no one ever asked about her weekend plans or invited her to join them after work. At the grocery store, she was just another customer. At the post office, the clerk barely looked up when handing her mail. She thought about her sister's news again. Lisa was 28, 6 years younger, and had always been the pretty one. The outgoing one. The one who had boys calling the house all through high school while Maya did homework in her room. Even their parents seemed more excited about Lisa's life milestones. Maybe some people are just meant to be alone, Maya said to herself as she walked past the town park. But even as she said it, she didn't want to believe it. Somewhere deep inside, she still hoped that someday someone would see something special in her. Someone would want to know her thoughts, her dreams, her fears. Someone would choose her. Maya had been walking for almost an hour when she realized where her feet had taken her. The library, her safe haven, the one place where she felt truly competent and useful. She had her keys with her, and suddenly she wanted nothing more than to be surrounded by the books that never judged her, never rejected her, never made her feel less than enough. She let herself in through the back door and turned on the soft reading lights. The familiar smell of books and the quiet atmosphere immediately calmed her racing thoughts. This was her domain. Here, she was respected. Here, people came to her for help and advice. Maya walked to her desk and sat down, looking around at the shelves she'd organized and the reading program she'd created. She'd helped dozens of kids learn to love reading. She'd assisted elderly patrons with research projects. She'd recommended books that changed people's lives. But at the end of each day, she went home alone. She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a small mirror she kept there for touching up her appearance before meetings with the library board. The face looking back at her was tired, sad, resigned. "No man has ever really wanted me," she whispered to her reflection. The words hung in the air like a confession she'd never dared speak aloud before. Maya thought about all the romance novels on the shelves around her. Stories of women finding love, being pursued, being chosen. She'd read hundreds of them, living vicariously through fictional characters who always got their happy endings. But real life wasn't like books. In real life, some people got chosen and others didn't. Some people found their soulmate and others spent their lives watching from the sidelines. Maya put the mirror away and rested her head on her desk. The library was completely silent except for the gentle hum of the heating system. This was her reality. This quiet, lonely existence where she poured all her energy into helping others, while her own heart slowly broke. She didn't know that across town, Police Chief David Rodriguez was lying awake in his own bed, thinking about her. She didn't know that he'd been finding excuses to visit the library for months, just to see her smile when she helped patrons. She didn't know that he'd noticed how gentle she was with the teenage kids who came in after school, how patient she was with the elderly folks who moved slowly between the shelves, how her whole face lit up when someone asked for a book recommendation. Maya didn't know that someone had been seeing her all along, noticing all the qualities that made her special, gathering the courage to approach her, but fighting his own battles. With self-doubt and fear of rejection, all she knew was the weight of years of feeling unwanted, the ache of watching others find love while she remained invisible, and the growing certainty that she was destined to be alone forever. As Maya finally locked up the library and walked home in the quiet mountain night, she made a decision. She would stop hoping, stop dreaming, stop setting herself up for disappointment. She would accept her fate and find a way to be content with the life she had, even if it wasn't the life she'd always wanted. What she didn't realize was that sometimes, just when we give up hope, life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes the person we've been waiting for has been waiting for us too, gathering courage and looking for the right moment to step out of the shadows and into our story. But that night, Maya knew none of this. She only knew the familiar ache of loneliness and the tired acceptance of a woman who had finally stopped believing in fairy tales. 3 days after Maya's late-night breakdown at the library, vandals struck Riverside Falls. They targeted the one place Maya considered sacred, her library. Maya got the call at 6 in the morning from Officer Janet Mills. "Maya, I'm sorry to wake you, but there's been some damage at the library. You need to come down here." Her heart raced as she threw on clothes and drove through the empty streets. When she arrived, she saw police cars parked outside, and her stomach dropped. Through the windows, she could see overturned chairs and papers scattered everywhere. Police Chief David Rodriguez was standing by his patrol car, talking into his radio. Maya had seen him around town before, of course. Everyone knew the chief. He was tall and broad-shouldered with kind eyes and salt and pepper hair that made him look distinguished rather than old. Maya had always thought he seemed intimidating, the way all authority figures did to her. "Ms. Chen," he said, walking over as she got out of her car. "I'm really sorry about this. Looks like some kids broke in around midnight and made a mess of things." Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. She just wanted to get inside and see how bad it was. The damage was heartbreaking but not devastating. Someone had knocked over several book displays, scattered papers from her desk, and spray-painted one wall with meaningless graffiti, but the books themselves were mostly untouched, and the computers seemed fine. "Could have been a lot worse," Chief Rodriguez said gently. "Looks like they were just bored teenagers looking to cause trouble, not trying to really destroy anything." Maya surveyed the chaos and felt tears building behind her eyes. This place was more than her workplace, it was her refuge. Seeing it violated felt personal. "We'll catch them," the chief continued. "There are fingerprints on the spray paint they left behind. And Mrs. Patterson across the street thinks she saw some kids running away around midnight." Maya nodded again and started picking up scattered papers. She couldn't fall apart in front of the police chief. She needed to be professional and handle this like the responsible adult she was. "You don't have to clean up right now," Chief Rodriguez said. "We're still processing the scene." "I can't leave it like this," Maya said quietly. "People depend on this place." Something in her voice made David Rodriguez look at her more carefully. He'd been watching Maya Chen from a distance for months, but this was the first time he'd really spoken to her. He could see how much this meant to her, how she was holding back tears while trying to restore order to her sanctuary. "Tell you what," he said. "My officers can finish up the evidence collection in about an hour. Why don't you go get some coffee, and I'll stay here to make sure everything stays secure. Then I can help you clean up." Maya looked surprised. "You don't have to do that. I'm sure you have more important things to handle." "Nothing more important than this," David said, and he meant it. "This library matters to a lot of people in town. It matters to you. That makes it matter to me." Maya went to Murphy's diner and sat alone with a cup of coffee she didn't really taste, staring out the window at her damaged library. She kept thinking about Chief Rodriguez's words. He'd said the library mattered to her, and that made it matter to him. When was the last time someone had said something like that to her? When she returned an hour later, the other officers were packing up their equipment. Chief Rodriguez had already started stacking chairs and straightening shelves. "You really don't have to help," Maya said again. "I know I don't have to," David replied with a small smile. "I want to." They worked together in comfortable silence for a while. Maya was surprised by how gentle the chief was with the books, how carefully he handled everything. She'd expected him to be impatient or rough, but he treated her library like it was something precious. "You've done amazing things with this place," David said as they reshelved some fallen books. "I remember what it looked like before you came to town. Dark, dusty, nobody ever used it. Now it's the heart of the community." Maya felt a warm flush of pride. "You really think so?" "I know so," David said firmly. "I see the kids coming here, after school instead of getting into trouble. I see the seniors using your computer classes to stay connected with their families. I see the book clubs and story times. You've transformed this place." They continued cleaning, and gradually, Maya found herself relaxing around him. Chief Rodriguez wasn't intimidating at all, she realized. He was thoughtful and observant and genuinely kind. "Can I ask you something?" David said, as they tackled the graffiti on the wall. "What made you want to become a librarian?" Maya paused, in her scrubbing. Nobody ever asked her questions like that. "I love books," she said simply. "But more than that, I love helping people find exactly what they need. Sometimes it's information for a school project. Sometimes it's a story to escape into. Sometimes it's just a quiet place to think. And you're good at it," David said. "Really good at it. I've watched you help people, and you have this way of making everyone feel welcome." Maya looked at him in surprise. "You've watched me?" David felt his face grow warm. "I mean, I've noticed. When I've been here, for official business and stuff." The truth was, David had been finding excuses to visit the library for months. A noise complaint that turned out to be nothing. Checking on the security after a break-in at the hardware store. Following up on a missing persons report that led nowhere. Any reason he could think of to see Maya's smile, to watch her interact with patrons, to admire the way she moved through her domain with quiet confidence. "What kind of official business?" Maya asked with a hint of amusement. David realized he was caught. "Okay, maybe not always completely official business," he admitted. "Maybe sometimes I just wanted to see how you were doing." Maya felt something flutter in her chest that she didn't recognize. "Really?" "Really?" David said, meeting her eyes. "Maya, I hope this doesn't sound strange, but I think you're remarkable. The way you care about this place, about the people who come here, the way you make everyone feel important. I've wanted to tell you that for a long time." Maya stared at him, speechless. Nobody had ever called her remarkable before. Nobody had ever paid attention to the way she treated people, or noticed how much she cared about her work. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to say anything," David replied gently. "I just wanted you to know that someone sees what you do here. Someone appreciates it." They finished cleaning in a different kind of silence, charged with something new and unexpected. Maya found herself stealing glances at David, noticing things she'd never paid attention to before. The way he concentrated when he worked, the careful way he handled everything, the genuine warmth in his eyes when he smiled. When they were finished, the library looked almost normal again. The graffiti was gone, the books were back where they belonged, and the scattered papers were reorganized. "Thank you," Maya said as they stood by the front door. "I couldn't have done this alone." "Yes, you could have," David said. "You're stronger than you think, but I'm glad I could help." He paused, seeming to gather courage. "Maya, I know this might not be the best time, but would you like to have dinner sometime? I mean, when things settle down and you've recovered from all this?" Maya's first instinct was to say no, to make an excuse about being too busy or not ready for dating or any of the dozens of reasons she'd used to protect herself from disappointment over the years. But something in David's expression stopped her. He looked nervous, hopeful, and genuinely interested. He wasn't asking her out as a pity date or because he felt sorry for her. He was asking because he wanted to spend time with her. "I'd like that," she heard herself say. David's face broke into a wide smile. "Really?" "Really," Maya said, and for the first time in years she felt like maybe she wasn't invisible after all. "How about tomorrow night?" David asked. "There's a nice Italian place in Pine Valley about 20 minutes away. Quiet, good food, and far enough from Riverside Falls that we won't have the whole town watching us eat." Maya laughed, a real laugh that surprised them both. "You've thought about this before, haven't you?" "Maybe a little," David admitted with a grin. As Maya locked up the library and they walked to their cars, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Not the desperate, clinging hope she'd felt before other disappointing dates, but a warm, steady feeling that maybe, just maybe, someone had finally noticed her for who she really was. David had seen her kindness, her dedication, her strength. He'd called her remarkable. And tomorrow night, for the first time in her adult life, Maya Chen was going on a date with someone who already knew her worth. The dinner at Antonio's in Pine Valley changed everything for Maya. David had been the perfect gentleman, opening doors, pulling out her chair, and listening to her talk about books with genuine interest instead of polite tolerance. For the first time in her life, Maya felt like she was on a real date with someone who actually wanted to be there with her. "I have a confession," David had said over dessert. "I've never actually read any of those romance novels you recommended to Mrs. Henderson, but I've been curious about them." Maya had laughed so hard she nearly choked on her tiramisu. "David Rodriguez, are you telling me you want to read romance novels? If you think they're good, then yeah, maybe I do," he'd replied with that smile that made her stomach flutter. 3 weeks later, they'd fallen into a comfortable routine. David stopped by the library most afternoons, sometimes with legitimate police business, but usually just to see Maya. He'd bring her coffee from Murphy's Diner, help her reorganize returned books, and listen to her stories about difficult patrons and successful reading programs. Maya couldn't believe how easy it was to talk to him. David asked thoughtful questions about her work, remembered details about her day, and made her laugh in ways she'd forgotten were possible. When she told him about her struggles with the library budget, he offered practical solutions. When she worried about the upcoming literacy fundraiser, he volunteered to help organize security. "You don't have to do that," Maya had protested. "It's not really a police matter." "Maya," David had said gently, "if it matters to you, it matters to me. That's how this works." But even as Maya began to bloom under David's attention, old fears crept in during quiet moments. Late at night, lying in bed, she'd wonder what David really saw in her. He could have any woman in town. He was handsome, successful, and respected. Why would he choose the quiet librarian who'd never been anyone's first choice? The doubts got worse when David took her to the annual Riverside Falls Harvest Festival. Walking through the crowded fairgrounds with his hand protectively on her back, Maya noticed how people looked at them. Some seemed pleased and surprised. Others looked confused, like they couldn't understand what Chief Rodriguez was doing with Maya Chen. "David, hi," called out Rebecca Walsh, the town's real estate agent and unofficial social coordinator. Rebecca was everything Maya wasn't: blonde, outgoing, and effortlessly popular. "I didn't expect to see you here tonight." "Rebecca," David nodded politely. "Have you met Maya? She's the head librarian." "Oh, of course we've met," Rebecca said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Maya, that's such a nice dress." Maya looked down at her simple blue sundress, the nicest thing she owned, and felt suddenly self-conscious. Rebecca was wearing a designer outfit that probably cost more than Maya's monthly grocery budget. "We should probably find our seats for the concert," David said, sensing Maya's discomfort. "Good to see you, Rebecca." As they walked away, Maya heard Rebecca talking to her friends. "Well, that's unexpected," she said in a voice just loud enough to carry. "I always thought David would end up with someone more, I don't know, social." Maya's cheeks burned, but David either didn't hear or chose to ignore the comment. He found them good seats near the bandstand and spent the evening making her laugh with quiet observations about the other festival goers. But Rebecca's words echoed in Maya's mind for days afterward. Someone more social, someone more outgoing, someone more like Rebecca herself. David seemed to sense her pulling away, though Maya tried to hide it. When he suggested they have dinner at Murphy's Diner instead of driving to Pine Valley, she agreed, but felt anxious about being seen together in their small town. When he invited her to the police department's annual barbecue, she made an excuse about having to work. "Maya," David said one afternoon as they sat in the library after closing time, "have I done something wrong? You seem different lately." Maya looked up from the book she was pretending to read. David was sitting across from her at one of the reading tables, his uniform hat on the chair beside him and concern written across his face. "You haven't done anything wrong," Maya said quietly. "It's not you, it's me." David winced. That's never a good start to a conversation. Maya sighed and closed her book. "David, look at me. Really look at me. I'm not the kind of woman men like you usually date. I'm quiet and boring, and I spend my weekends reading instead of going to parties. I don't know how to make small talk at social events, and I don't look good in the kind of clothes other women wear." "Maya," David started, but she held up a hand. "Let me finish. You're the police chief. You're respected and admired, and you could have your pick of women in this town. Women like Rebecca Walsh who know how to dress and how to charm people and how to be the kind of partner a man in your position needs." David stared at her for a long moment. "Are you breaking up with me because you think I'm too good for you?" "I'm being realistic," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This was nice while it lasted, but eventually you'll realize what everyone else already sees, that we don't make sense together." David stood up and moved to the chair next to Maya's. He took her hands in his, and she was surprised by how warm and steady they were. "Maya, do you want to know what I see when I look at you? I see a woman who transforms lives with her kindness. I see someone who makes teenagers feel welcome when they're struggling with homework, who helps elderly people stay connected to the world, who creates magic in this library every single day." Maya felt tears building behind her eyes. But David continued. "I see a woman who's beautiful in ways Rebecca Walsh couldn't even imagine. You have this quiet strength, this genuine caring for people that draws me to you like nothing I've ever experienced. When I'm with you, I feel like the best version of myself." "But David," Maya whispered, "I'm not exciting. I'm not the kind of woman who turns heads or lights up a room." "You light up my world," David said firmly. "Maya, I've been married before. I know what it's like to be with someone who looks perfect on the surface but has nothing underneath. I know what it's like to feel lonely even when you're not alone." Maya looked at him in surprise. She'd known David was divorced, but he'd never talked about his ex-wife before. "I was married to someone exactly like Rebecca Walsh," David continued. "Beautiful, social, everything I thought I wanted. And I was miserable. She cared more about appearances than substance, more about being seen at the right events than building something real together." He cupped Maya's face gently in his hands. "You are real, Maya. You are genuine and kind and intelligent and everything I never knew I was looking for. When I'm having a terrible day dealing with crime and paperwork and politics, coming here to see you is what keeps me sane." Maya felt the tears spill over. "I'm so scared, David. I'm scared of believing this is real and then having it disappear. I'm scared of letting people see us together and having them think you've lost your mind. I'm scared of not being enough for you." "You are more than enough," David said, wiping away her tears with his thumb. "And I'm scared too. I'm scared of messing this up because you mean everything to me. I'm scared of my job putting you in danger, or my past mistakes affecting you. I'm scared of not being the kind of man who deserves someone as special as you." They sat in silence for a moment, both acknowledging their fears and vulnerabilities. "So what do we do?" Maya asked. "We take it one day at a time," David said. "We trust what we feel for each other instead of what other people might think. And we remember that the best things in life are worth being scared for." Maya leaned into David's embrace, feeling safer than she had in weeks. But even as she let herself hope again, a part of her wondered if love could really be enough to overcome a lifetime of feeling like she wasn't enough. What she didn't know was that David was already planning something that would show not just her, but the entire town of Riverside Falls exactly how he felt about Maya Chen. Something that would make it impossible for anyone, including Maya herself, to doubt how much she meant to him. But first, he had to find the courage to risk everything on the woman who had already given him more happiness than he'd ever thought possible. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning in November. Maya was at Henderson's Market picking up groceries before work when she overheard a conversation that shattered her newly rebuilt confidence. "I just don't understand what David sees in her," said Patricia Morrison, the bank manager's wife. She was talking to two other women by the produce section, unaware that Maya was just around the corner in the cereal aisle. "She's so plain," agreed Linda Foster. "I mean, she seems nice enough, but David Rodriguez? He could have anyone. Remember how handsome he looked at the mayor's wedding last year? Every single woman there was hoping he'd ask them to dance." "Maybe he feels sorry for her," Patricia suggested. "You know, after all those years of being alone, some men have a savior complex." Maya's hands trembled as she gripped her shopping basket. She wanted to leave, to escape before she heard any more, but her feet seemed frozen to the floor. "Well, it won't last," said the third woman, whose voice Maya recognized as belonging to Janet from the post office. "Men like David don't settle down with women like Maya. Eventually he'll come to his senses and find someone more suitable. Someone who fits his status in this town." "Poor Maya," Patricia said with false sympathy. "She probably thinks this is real love. It's going to be devastating when he realizes his mistake." Maya abandoned her shopping basket and fled the store, her heart pounding and her vision blurred with unshed tears. She made it to her car before the first sob escaped, and by the time she reached her apartment, she was crying so hard she could barely breathe. All her worst fears had been confirmed. David was with her out of pity. The whole town was waiting for him to come to his senses. She was just a temporary mistake in the life of a man who deserved so much better. Maya called in sick to work and spent the day in bed, replaying every moment of her relationship with David. Had she imagined the warmth in his eyes? Was his kindness just politeness? Had she been so desperate for love that she'd convinced herself David's feelings were real? When David called that evening, Maya let it go to voicemail. Then another call. Then another. Finally, he showed up at her apartment, knocking persistently, until she had no choice but to answer the door. "Maya, what's wrong?" "You look terrible," David said, immediately concerned. "Are you sick? Mrs. Patterson said you never came to work today." Maya stood in her doorway in her pajamas, her eyes red from crying, trying to find the words to end this fantasy once and for all. "I can't do this anymore, David," she whispered. "Can't do what?" David stepped closer, but Maya backed away. "This, us, whatever this is supposed to be." Maya's voice was shaky but determined. "I heard them today at the grocery store. Patricia and Linda and Janet. They were talking about us, about how you could have anyone and how I don't fit your status and how you'll eventually come to your senses." David's jaw tightened. "And you believe them?" Look at me, David. Maya's voice cracked. Really, look at me. I'm 34 years old and I've spent most of my life invisible to men. No one has ever fought for me. No one has ever chosen me over someone better, and no one ever will. I was stupid to think you were different. Maya was crying again now, all the pain and rejection of her lifetime pouring out. No man has ever really wanted me, David. Not really. And deep down, neither do you. You just haven't figured that out yet. David stared at her for a long moment, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but filled with the intensity Maya had never heard before. Then I'll claim you before the whole world. Maya looked up at him through her tears, confused by his words. Maya Chen, David said, stepping closer until he was just inches away from her. If you think for 1 second that what I feel for you isn't real, then I haven't done a good enough job showing you. If you think this town's opinion matters more to me than your happiness, then I've failed as the man who loves you. David. Maya started, but he gently placed his finger against her lips. I love you, he said firmly. I love your kindness and your intelligence, and the way you make everyone around you feel valued. I love how you light up when you talk about books and how you remember every patron's name and reading preferences. I love your quiet strength and your gentle heart and the way you see the best in people even when they don't deserve it. Maya felt fresh tears streaming down her face, but these were different somehow. I love you exactly as you are, Maya. Not because I feel sorry for you, not because I'm settling, but because you are the most extraordinary woman I have ever known. And if the people in this town can't see that, then I'll make sure they understand exactly how I feel about you. What do you mean? Maya whispered. David cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. I mean that tomorrow I'm going to show everyone in Riverside Falls that Maya Chen is the woman I choose, the woman I'm proud to love, the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. David, you don't have to— Yes, I do, David interrupted. Maya, I should have done this weeks ago. I should have made it clear to everyone, including you, that you're not some temporary distraction or pity date. You're the love of my life. Maya searched David's face, looking for any sign that he was just being kind, just trying to make her feel better. But all she saw was fierce determination and unmistakable love. Are you sure? She asked quietly. Once you do whatever you're planning to do, there's no taking it back. Everyone will know, everyone will have opinions. Let them, David said without hesitation. Maya, I've spent my whole adult life caring what other people think, trying to maintain the right image, being the perfect public servant, and you know what? I was miserable. The only time I've felt truly happy, truly myself, is when I'm with you. He took her hands in his. Tomorrow is Saturday. The farmers' market will be packed with people. Half the town will be there, including Patricia Morrison and Linda Foster and anyone else who thinks they know better than I do about who I should love. Maya's eyes widened as she began to understand what he was planning. David, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life, David said. Maya Chen, I'm going to tell this entire town that you are the most amazing woman I've ever known, and I'm going to ask you to marry me in front of everyone who thinks I could do better. Maya gasped, her heart racing. Marry you? If you'll have me, David said, pulling a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. I bought this ring 3 weeks ago. I've been carrying it around, waiting for the perfect moment, but you know what? The perfect moment is whenever I'm brave enough to tell the world that I want to spend forever with you. Maya stared at the ring box, hardly daring to believe this was really happening. David, what if they're right? What if you do regret this someday? The only thing I would regret is losing you because I was too much of a coward to fight for what we have, David said. Maya, you asked me to really look at you. Well, I have been looking at you for months, and every time I look, I see something new to love. He opened the ring box, revealing a simple but beautiful diamond solitaire. This isn't about proving anything to them. This is about proving to you that when I say I love you, I mean it with everything I have. Maya looked from the ring to David's face, seeing nothing but sincerity and love in his eyes. Will you let me show you how much you mean to me? David asked. Will you let me claim you before the whole world and make sure everyone knows that Maya Chen is the woman I choose today? And every day for the rest of my life? Maya thought about all the years of loneliness, all the times she'd felt invisible and unwanted. She thought about the gossip and the doubts and the fear that this was all too good to be true. And then she thought about David's hands gently helping her clean up the library, his patient attention when she talked about books, his fierce protectiveness when she was hurt, the way he made her feel seen and valued and loved. "Yes," she whispered, then stronger. "Yes, David. I'll marry you." David's face broke into the biggest smile Maya had ever seen as he slipped the ring onto her finger. Then he pulled her into his arms and kissed her with a passion that left no doubt about his feelings. "Tomorrow," he said against her lips, "everyone in Riverside Falls is going to know that Maya Chen said yes to David Rodriguez, and they're going to understand that I'm the luckiest man alive." Maya laughed through her, happy tears, finally believing that maybe, just maybe, she really was wanted after all. Saturday morning dawned clear and crisp. Perfect weather for the Riverside Falls Farmers Market. Maya woke up with butterflies in her stomach, hardly believing what was about to happen. David had spent the night on her couch, insisting he wasn't, leaving her alone with her doubts, and she was grateful for his presence. "Are you ready for this?" David asked over coffee, looking surprisingly calm for a man about to make such a public declaration. Maya touched the engagement ring on her finger, still adjusting to its weight. "I think so. Are you sure you want to do this? It's not too late to change your mind." David stood up and pulled her into his arms. "Maya, the only thing I'm going to change my mind about is waiting any longer to make you my wife. I love you and I want everyone to know it." By 10 o'clock, the town square was bustling with activity. Farmers had set up their booths selling autumn produce, local artisans displayed their crafts, and families wandered between the stalls enjoying the beautiful fall day. Maya could see familiar faces everywhere. Her library patrons, David's colleagues, neighbors, and business owners. David had asked Officer Martinez to help him set up a small platform near the center of the market, claiming it was for community announcements. Maya stood nearby, her heart racing as she watched nearly half the town gather around, curious about what their police chief had to say. She spotted Patricia Morrison and Linda Foster near the front of the crowd, whispering to each other and looking puzzled. Rebecca Walsh was there too, looking perfectly put together as always. Maya felt a moment of panic, wondering what these people would think, what they would say about her after today. David climbed onto the small platform and smiled at the crowd that had gathered. Maya had never seen him look more confident or more handsome than he did in that moment, standing tall in his weekend clothes with the autumn sun highlighting his strong features. "Good morning, everyone," David said, his voice carrying clearly across the square. "I hope you're all enjoying this beautiful day in our wonderful farmers market." People nodded and murmured agreement, but Maya could see the curiosity on their faces. This wasn't a typical community announcement. "I asked for a few minutes of your time because I have something important to share with all of you," David continued. "Something about love, about seeing the true value in people, and about the most extraordinary woman I've ever had the privilege to know." Maya felt her cheeks flush as heads began turning to look at her. David's eyes found hers in the crowd, and his smile was so warm and reassuring that her nervousness began to fade. "6 months ago, I thought I knew what I wanted in a partner," David said to the crowd. "I thought I wanted someone flashy, someone who would look good at official events, someone who would impress people with her beauty and charm." Maya could see Patricia and Linda exchanging glances, probably thinking David was about to announce his engagement to someone like Rebecca. "But then I met Maya Chen," David continued, his voice filled with unmistakable love. "And she showed me what real beauty looks like." The crowd turned to look at Maya, who felt exposed and vulnerable but tried to stand tall. "Real beauty," David said, his eyes never leaving Maya's face, "is a woman who stays late at the library to help a struggling student with homework. Real beauty is someone who remembers the names of every elderly patron and always asks about their grandchildren. Real beauty is a person who transforms a neglected building into the heart of our community through pure dedication and love." Maya felt tears building in her eyes as David's words washed over her. Real beauty is a woman who sees the best in people, even when they don't see it in themselves. A woman who makes everyone around her feel valued and important. A woman whose kindness and intelligence and strength make her absolutely radiant. David stepped down from the platform and walked through the crowd toward Maya, never breaking eye contact. For too long, I think some of us have overlooked Maya Chen, David said, his voice carrying to every person in the square. We've taken her for granted, failed to appreciate the gift she is to our community. Well, I refuse to make that mistake. He reached Maya and took her hands in his, right there in front of everyone. Maya, David said, loud enough for the entire crowd to hear, you are brilliant and compassionate and beautiful in ways that matter. You make me want to be a better man. You make me believe in the kind of love I thought only existed in fairy tales. Maya could hear people murmuring around them, but David's words made everything else fade into the background. I know some people might think we're an unlikely match, David continued, with a glance toward Patricia and her friends. They might think I could do better, that I should choose someone more glamorous or socially prominent. He turned back to Maya with a smile that took her breath away. But they're wrong. I couldn't do better than Maya Chen if I searched the entire world. She is everything I never knew I needed, everything I didn't know I was looking for. She is my perfect match, my missing piece, my home. David dropped to one knee right there in the middle of the farmer's market, with what seemed like half of Riverside Falls watching. Maya gasped even though she knew it was coming. Maya Chen, David said, his voice strong and clear. I love you with everything I have. Will you do me the incredible honor of becoming my wife? The crowd held its breath as Maya looked down at the man kneeling before her, this wonderful man who saw all her worth when she couldn't see it herself. Yes, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Then, louder, with more confidence than she'd ever felt in her life. Yes, David, I will marry you. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause as David stood and kissed Maya passionately. She could hear people calling out congratulations, could see genuine smiles and happy tears on faces throughout the crowd. When they finally broke apart, David addressed the crowd one more time. I want everyone here to know that Maya Chen is the woman I choose, he said, his arm around her waist. She is the woman I'm proud to love, the woman I can't wait to call my wife. And if anyone thinks I could do better, well, they clearly don't. Know Maya the way I do. Maya felt a confidence she'd never experienced before as she looked out at the crowd. Yes, some people looked surprised or confused, but most faces showed genuine happiness for them. She saw Mrs. Henderson from the library wiping away tears. She saw teenagers from her after-school program cheering. She saw elderly patrons nodding their approval. Even Patricia Morrison was clapping, though she looked somewhat stunned by David's passionate declaration. Thank you all for sharing this moment with us, David concluded. Now please enjoy the market and celebrate love in all its forms. As the crowd began to disperse, people approached Maya and David with congratulations. Maya was overwhelmed by the warmth and genuine happiness people expressed for them. I always thought you two would make a lovely couple, said Mrs. Patterson, Maya's elderly neighbor. You both have such kind hearts. Chief, you got yourself a real treasure, said Tom Miller, one of David's officers. Maya's helped my daughter so much with her reading. She's special, that one. Even some of the people who had seemed skeptical earlier approached them with congratulations. Linda Foster actually hugged Maya and said, I think you and David are perfect for each other. I'm sorry if I ever suggested otherwise. As the afternoon wore on and the farmer's market began to wind down, Maya and David found themselves alone on a bench in the town square, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and pink. Do you regret it? Maya asked quietly, making such a public declaration. David turned to her with surprise. Regret loving you in front of the whole town? Never. Do you regret saying yes? Maya looked down at her engagement ring, thinking about how different she felt from the woman who had cried in her apartment just the day before. No, she said with certainty. I don't regret it at all. For the first time in my life, I feel like someone chose me not despite who I am, but because of who I am. That's exactly right, David said, pulling her closer. Maya, I need you to understand something. What happened today wasn't about proving anything to other people. It was about making sure you never doubt again that you are wanted, that you are loved, that you are chosen. Maya leaned against David's shoulder, feeling a peace she'd never known before. I used to think I was invisible, she said softly. I thought I was the kind of person who would always be overlooked, always be alone. You were never invisible to me, David replied. From the first time I saw you in the library, helping that young mother find books for her toddler, you were the most visible person in the room. You just needed someone who knew how to really look. 6 months later, Maya and David were married in the same town square where he had proposed. The entire community turned out for the wedding, and Maya realized that she wasn't the overlooked librarian anymore. She was David's wife, but more importantly, she was finally herself, confident, loved, and certain of her worth. The wedding reception was held in the library, surrounded by the books that had been Maya's companions during her lonely years. As she and David danced their first dance between the shelves, Maya thought about how much her life had changed. She wasn't a different person than she had been before David. She was still quiet, still preferred books to parties, still found her greatest joy in